But Jesus said, what is impossible with man is possible with God. Luke chapter 18, verse 27. All right, let's do it. Let's just review the Odyssey. Oosa. Let's just get it over with. The snooze a see, the sleep a see, the get me my blankie, get me my pillow and my teddy. I'm gonna take a little nap a see. This is gonna be a mostly spoiler-free review. I don't want to give too much away, though you kind of got to blame yourself for that if you do, because this story is literally 3,000 years old. Production-wise, this is one of the most masterful, technically sound movies I've ever seen in my life. There's so much about the way the movie was actually crafted that is kind of just beautiful and a little bit historic in a way. But it became, to me at least, one of the most dreadful, boring, turtle-like paces I have ever seen, especially in a Christopher Nolan movie, which is, he's kind of known for his precision and speed. Absolutely, absolutely slow movie. Tries to make some moral stances about things, which I will give it credit for, but does it in a kind of complicated and sometimes contradictory way. And ultimately, I just felt like I didn't really care about what was happening on the screen, except for like the last 20 minutes and maybe 3 or 4 really cool sections in between the 3 hours. One thing we always hope you have the stomach for, though, are hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below. Hit those like and subscribe buttons down there. Help us to never see the Odyssey ever again in our lives and to keep pushing forward the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks for tuning in. So if you've seen any of our previous reviews on the Berean Brotherhood, we're usually going to do it in 3 categories: the good, the bad, and the biblical. The good, what was good about the movie? The bad, what was bad about the movie? And the biblical, what kind of narratives was the movie pushing? What morals should Christian be concerned about or kind of support in the movie? How does it all kind of gel together with what the director's perspective on human life and life in general is? So let's start off with the good. High-level, world-class production, cinematography, shadows, costumes, set pieces, landscapes, lighting, A-tier actors, especially Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland, completely stood out to me. Tom Holland was kind of the heart of the movie, if there was one. Robert Pattinson was one of the most slimiest rats I've ever seen on a movie screen. He made me absolutely hate him within 20 seconds, and that's exactly what his job was to do, so really stand out. The music was so good. Amazing soundtrack composed by Ludwig Göransson. Christopher Nolan said that he completely banned traditional orchestration in this film, which means you're not going to hear like the standard clarinets and flutes and stuff. Instead, they opted to go for older Greek instruments like aulos, lyres, bronze percussion. It gives it kind of this like creepy, sad, jazz, haunted feeling. Combined with the lighting and the darkness and the seriousness of the movie as a whole, it's probably one of the most unique soundtracks you're going to hear, second only to Dune. The music in this movie is kind of like its own character. Like when Odysseus comes up and his theme kind of plays, or the Sirens theme plays, or the Cyclops shows up, everyone's got like a really perfectly custom tailored tune to go with them. And you're probably going to be humming some of it even after the movie finishes. I'm not like a literary purist who's like, well, on line 73, Odysseus had 3 strands of hair, and if the movie doesn't have that, it sucks. I don't care at all. I just want to know if it's a good movie or not. The movie's got a few really high moments, like when Odysseus encounters a Cyclops or any of the creatures on these islands, and the last 20 minutes kind of wrap it up and make you feel a little bit of something. So it's not that the movie doesn't have like some really high peaks. It's kind of like those peaks are scattered once every 40 minutes in a 3-hour long movie. And so I found myself just kind of sitting there a bunch of times, just, oh my God, kill me now. Why can't anything happen in this movie? And finally, the movie is also pretty morality reflective, meaning it tries to aim for some like really cool moral concepts to impart on the audience. One of them is Zeus's law that it repeats over and over throughout it. It's kind of like treat the stranger with hospitality. Don't be greedy and take his stuff. Treat him as if he were a god, because if you don't do that, civilization collapses and a bunch of evil things happen. It's broad. You're not going to have like a scalpel on these things. And one of the big problems with the movie is when you do dig deeper into what its message is, what the moral lessons it's trying to show are, it kind of collapses on itself. But I'm going to give Christopher Nolan his props because he's trying to reflect on the causes and endings of war and conflict. And he's doing a deeper discovery into what truth and lies are in order to accomplish it. Now let's go into the bad. Oh my God, this movie feels like it never ends. And I got a stomach for long movies. Listen, I've watched Lord of the Rings 50 billion times. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I could watch those things back to back. I've been a fan of Nolan since Memento. It's not that I don't like, pieces of entertainment with long run times. I saw Zack Snyder's director's cut on Justice League and I thought it was great. But this is some of the most boring, don't care 3 hours I've ever seen in my life. And I think a lot of it comes down to the way they structured the story. You definitely care at the end when Odysseus comes back and starts taking some names. But you've got 2 hours and 30 minutes before those last 20 or 30 minutes where you're kind of just on boats waiting for stuff to happen. Then it kind of happens for a few minutes and then you go back to the boat. It's a real drag because most of the movie, Odysseus is trying to obviously get back home to his country of Ithaca and get back to his throne with his crew of soldiers. But they don't really explore these soldiers much. They're just kind of guys who fought with him during the war. And most of the movie, they spend either getting mad at Odysseus for making a kind of dumb call or getting eaten by creatures. So that's not like a lot of character depth. This ain't Family Matters. This ain't Full House. These guys show up and they get angry at Odysseus or they die and get killed and eaten. I'm not going to forge like an emotional connection to these people. They're pretty much cannon fodder. It's also kind of funny when every time they do get eaten on an island, they run back to the boat. And even though like maybe 20 or 30 of them got killed, there's like 400 more guys on the boat every time they get back. So not until the end of the movie do you even feel there's a real kind of stake at the number of people he's losing, when obviously at the end, most go bye-bye. Before that, they kind of just keep cloning themselves on the boat. So every time he comes back, there's just a lot more guys and you don't really feel anything at all. There's no connection there. You do care when the story is resolved at the end, but again, that's like 20 minutes out of 3 hours. And by that point, I had kind of checked out. Those are some really well done, creepy moments, but they're just too rare throughout the movie. And finally, on the bad of the movie, it does try and be morally reflective to some degree. But when you dig deeper and get into the meat of what it's trying to say, it really, at best, is kind of shallow. And at worst, it's really, really contradictory, which leads us straight into the biblical review. Like, what's good about the morals? What do they push? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? The Odyssey tells you from the start that those who follow Zeus's law and those who honor the stranger, those who honor the disenfranchised will be honored in return. But all throughout the movie, it kind of usurps its own rule. Like, people who break the rule are sometimes often rewarded very heavily. Sometimes people who uphold the rule are not rewarded heavily. Sometimes the gods just kind of penalize people for the fun of it. Sometimes Odysseus, the smartest man in the entire planet, does some kind of brain dead things. It's a movie that I think Christopher Nolan really wants to shove home the idea of truth and lies, the impact of lies in the short term for some short-term good, creating catastrophic long-term civilizational consequences. And it's very, very good at describing those problems on a human scale, but it's not good at all at prescribing solutions to them. By the end of the movie, you kind of realize that Odysseus committed genocide by wiping out an entire city in Troy. But their solution to it is to just kind of go away for a little while and take a little vacation. They haven't really done anything to kind of fix the things that they did wrong. Like, sure, he gets his girl back and his son, but there's still like 4 million people dead and you can't really do anything about it. It's true that more heroic films like The Dark Knight obviously have a clear hero and clear villain and clear moral resolution. And The Odyssey is not meant to be one of those kind of super heroic features. It's about a morally gray kind of okay dude who's trying to just get back home. But if everybody is blah at the end and the villains and heroes are all basically the same thing, then there kind of feels like there was no moral character arc and you don't really have any investment in what happened. It kind of just felt like a spectacle you watched and now you left unchanged. One of the most obvious ways that the message of the movie kind of really, really contradicts itself is with, you guessed it, the casting and narrative of Elliot Page. I know it's a movie. I know we've got to take the movie on its own merits. I get it. But it really does kind of highlight the bigger problems with the way that the Odyssey was written. Elliot Page in the real world is a transgender man, which is to say that they are scientifically, biologically, factually a biological female. There's no religious or philosophical or moral debate about this. It is a scientific fact that Elliot Page is a biological female, and in this movie is playing a male soldier. I had mixed feelings about it because I saw how many people online were just bullying Elliot and just saying the most disgusting names towards them and saying they should die. But Christians are called to be some of the most compassionate, merciful, loving people in the world, while still acknowledging through love the truth. And the truth is that if you have a condition where you are a biological sex and it gives you psychological torture and pain and suffering inside, even to the point of depression or suicide, because you are not another biological category, then the Christian's job is to love you and to support you, but to guide you to get closer and closer towards accepting the truth about who you really are. It's not a ding on the Odyssey because they're casting actors or actresses who I feel are making lifestyle choices I don't agree with. It's a ding on the movie's narrative. It's a ding on the writing when the whole movie's premise is the price of deceit and self-deceit, the price of telling the truth and the honor in telling the truth. And it's literally doing that exact contradiction with one of its actors. It's not just a fundamentalist Christian view on the narrative either. In the movie itself, when there's a flashback scene with Elliot Page's character, instead of it being a young girl, they cast a biological male boy as her past self, which tells you that even the director themselves knew that the credibility of the movie hinged on casting someone who was actually a biological male in the childlike role. So if you're creating a movie about the fundamental laws of reality and morality and the price of self-deceit, you can't literally do the exact same thing you're criticizing your main characters of and do it to one of your actors. The difference between the LGBTQ activists and trans activists and a Bible-following Christian, I mean, the sincere versions of both of them. Like if you sincerely love Jesus and you are sincerely an LGBT or trans activist, you both ultimately want the same goal, which is you want people in these communities to have the healthiest, safest, most sustainable, content lives possible. The only difference is that the Bible believer wants to use the truth to get to that destination, and the activist would rather use a lie. The most loving thing you could do is tell the truth, and I think the movie took a hit in that department. That's a small piece, but it kind of highlights the bigger problems with the Odyssey in general, and the way it kind of tries to talk about problems that really do exist in Greek mythology and in the real world, but it doesn't really have any solutions for any of it. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. So in short, really, really masterfully done production, like awesome stuff. The atmosphere, the suspense, the music, it's definitely a high point in Christopher Nolan's career, but it's a slow movie. It moves at a snail-like pace. It almost felt like I was trapped with Odysseus on the beach at one point because I'm just dying to get out of this scene already. Weird flashbacks to characters that only have meaning until the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie, and a well-intentioned moral center of the movie that's trying to teach us a kind of golden rule do unto others way of thinking, but undercuts the way it delivers that message. Final score is I give Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey a 6 out of 10. This is the Berean Brotherhood. If listening to me criticize this movie felt like an Odyssey, hit that like and subscribe button down below. Let me know in the comments whether I was completely right or completely wrong, whether this was the greatest movie that's ever crossed cinema theaters, or it's one of the greatest overhyped balloons you've ever seen. We love you guys. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.